rolled at an intersection south of Brisbane. Let's get to our political panel. Tim Wilson from the Liberal Party and Peter Murphy, Labor MP, join me as we kick things off, at least with this panel for 2021. Thanks both for your time. Why don't we start with the vaccine? So the information campaign going out from today, Tim Wilson, it comes though as we don't have senior government members repeatedly asked to and not choosing to condemn some of your coalition colleagues who have questioned the expert advice. Is that a bit of a contradiction in of itself?
Well, firstly, Tom, we live in a society where people are entitled to their opinion, but the government bases its decision-making on expert advice and expert information around vaccines and making sure that Australians can access the vaccines they need to address the challenges of COVID-19. I think every Australian wants to see the nation and the world move on from the experience we've had over the past 12 months, and that's by making sure we have a highly vaccinated population with the available vaccines available to the community, and of course to build public confidence as part of that process.
So let me ask your views then on people such as Craig Kelly questioning the TGA and whether or not whether or not he'll take the vaccine, questioning whether treatment should be used that the Australian government's ignoring for some reason?
Well, I haven't actually seen his comments, but in the end, I'll be taking the vaccine, and I have faith in the processes around the TGA. In fact, if I had any criticism of the TGA at times, it's probably that they're too rigorous and too restrictive rather than the reverse.
All right, well, I guess in this case it's to ensure confidence. Your views on this, Peter, are we best to just talk up the official advice rather than draw too much attention? And obviously I'm guilty of that, of the unofficial advice.
I think absolutely we should be talking up the official advice, and I agree with a lot of what Tim said. It's really important for the general public to have confidence in the vaccine. The TGA is absolutely appropriately stringent and doesn't approve drugs unless they are ready to be used, but it is patently absurd for the government to spend millions of dollars trying to encourage Australians to be vaccinated and then have members of the government coming out saying that they won't take the vaccine, that people shouldn't believe medical experts, say Craig Kelly and George Christensen saying things like chief medical officers are war criminals, as I understand it, and the Prime Minister needs to shut them down. It's not about politics. It's not about free speech. It's actually about public health. And if we've got a $24 million campaign telling people the importance of the vaccine, and I will get vaccinated as soon as it's available, then we also need to have a government that says these sorts of conspiracy theories cannot be pushed by members of the government.
Let's move on to superannuation. A hit back from Paul Keating. I'll start with this for you, Tim Wilson. I know it's close to your heart. I guess that the key is what your view is on superannuation. There's not a legislated purpose for it. Should people be encouraged to draw down and spend their superannuation? Is that the point of it, that you don't have any left at the end of your, well, let's be bleak about it, predicted lifespan?
Well, we know that despite superannuation increasing by a factor of more than 14 times since 1992 in terms of the amount of money that is saved in it, it has had virtually no effect on demand on the pension. The pension has gone down from 67% of people who are retired down to 65%, which shows you that no matter how much money we save in superannuation, it's not actually making people any more financially independent and making them more control of their finances. Now, I've made it quite clear, I believe, that young Australians have seen a collapse in home ownership rates during the exact same time they're forced to save for their super, should be able to draw down on their super towards buying their first home. We're running a campaign at homefirstsupersecond.com to make that point, and it's to make sure people's money is their money and it should be used so they can use it through their stage of life so they're able to be financially independent in their working life as well as in their retirement.
How much would that unleash huge demand, though? We know we've had so many different schemes to help people get in, and it's often just factored into the price when you think of first home buyers grants. I mean, it would be great for individuals if that happened, but it's not happening to individuals if that happens. It's tens of thousands of Australians, maybe more.
Well, the current system is that we essentially socialise the costs of buying your first home through different schemes, and then we privatise the gains. I think we should privatise the costs and privatise the gains associated with home ownership. But more critically, that argument is simply absurd. The argument is based on the idea it's better to have lower home ownership rates at cheaper prices, that is, have higher rates of home ownership at higher prices. I want young Australians to be able to buy their own home. When they have 10% or nearly 10% of their income confiscated and they're denied access to savings, it has a big impact on their capacity to be able to buy their own home. There are many impacts or many factors that increase the cost of housing. There is only one that directly and deliberately diminishes young Australians' capacity to be able to buy their own home, and that's prioritising super over home ownership. It should be home first, super second.
Peter, whatever happens on increases, we know Labor's view on this. Is there at least a debate around timing? We are set, all the expert advice, including from the RBA, sluggish wage increases, if there are going to be any at all in the next few years. So isn't that at least a time to debate the super increases, the scheduled ones?
Well, we haven't seen the impact on wages that the Liberals talk about from the previous increases to superannuation. And Tim can have his opinions about superannuation, but let's be very clear about it. He doesn't believe in superannuation. I've been in the parliament when he's called it some sort of criminal money laundering enterprise. So this is a scheme or a campaign to chip away at superannuation bit by bit by bit. We now have people who are acknowledging that the early withdrawal of superannuation was a flawed scheme and arguing that low-income earners perhaps should get a top-up. You know, this is a really crucial issue for people's retirement, and it's not as simple as to say home first, superannuation second. And many low-income earners, it wouldn't matter what happened to their superannuation contribution. They're still not going to be able to save for a house because they're not earning enough, because the government doesn't believe in reforming the industrial relations system to help wages go up. And to say, you know, it's as simple as a home or compulsory superannuation is a false dichotomy, and it's not doing a service to the public debate.
Unfortunately, the number of things that were just said were false. Firstly, I haven't said that it's a choice between home ownership and superannuation. What I've said is about priorities. It's home first, should be home first, super second. And the point around money laundering in the super system was about how superannuation funds are sending them into Australian superannuation savings into other entities when they no longer have to feel like they're being accountable for it. I think when Australians invest their money in superannuation, the fund should be held accountable for how it's spent. And if people want to run secret systems where they hide from Parliament and hide from accountability, then you're doing a massive disservice to the public.
We've had a Royal Commission and the superannuation funds that you don't like, Tim, which are the industry super funds, came out of that Royal Commission extraordinarily well, and it was the retail funds that didn't. And APRA's heat chart about how funds are imposing fees, again, the industry super funds are doing well. And what's often forgotten, of course, is that industry super funds have boards which have business and unions on them. So it shouldn't be an argument that descends into just hyperbole and house or super when you're a young person. There is a really complicated system with a lot of reforms that are needed, including
$36 million on bonuses for fund managers, and you do not think they should be held accountable when the average superannuation balance at retirement of many Australians is only about $300,000 in the case of men, about $200,000 in the case of women, and they're paying out of those balances $36 million bonuses, and they won't answer to the Parliament of Australia, but they will.
What's that 36 million out of, though?
Money.
What sort of pot of money is that out of, Tim?
Well, that's irrelevant. Do you think $36 million bonuses should be paid?
Well, it's not irrelevant.
Superannuation?
It's all relative.
It's coming out of the same.
Yeah, but what are you saying? Is a dollar too much?
Well, on that logical basis, then the size of the federal budget means the federal treasurer should be paid in the millions. Now, I don't think it is logical at all. I think
But
the
okay, but on
idea
your
that
logic, then
$36
a dollar
million
is too much, is it?
bonuses.
There
I don't
shouldn't be a
believe that
dollar of
$36
bonuses?
million bonuses should be paid out of Australia's superannuation savings to fund managers, and then for them to hide the information about that from the Parliament of Australia and, by default, the people of Australia. Now, Peta Murphy is well within her rights to run the argument for secrecy. I want transparency.
I haven't done that,
there.
Tim. Can we, when we do
Just
this,
10 seconds, Peta.
when we do this forum, I'm happy to have debates. You and I don't agree on everything, but I'm not happy to have you put words in my mouth, Tim. And you know that.
Well, you've done it a number of times about this interview.
I'd be pleased if you don't do that again. Thank you.
Good, then you support IFM providing that information.
Well, and I'm going to leave it there, Tim. We've got to go. I'm going to get in trouble. We need to get to inflation figures. Good to see we've started the year in some vigorous debate. Talk again soon. Thank you. Let's get to the